Hello and welcome to Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we are going to break down all of the quote-unquote vets at Summer League. Your Brandon Millers, your Jarris Walkers, your guys that are not rookies that are playing Summer League basketball. That will include guys like Jay Huff, who just signed a two-way deal in Memphis. It'll include Scottie Pippen Jr. It'll include a wider range of players, including one of my favorites, Leonard Miller, as you guys all know. But until then, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you, man? I was thinking, thank goodness we aren't doing rookies and sophomores in the same episode. If we had you talking about Cam Spencer and Leonard Miller in the same episode, I don't know that I'd get a talk. I mean, you would just go for 90 minutes straight about two of your favorite players in the league.
I think we'd just lose viewership at that point, wouldn't we? Like that'd be the key. Like we wouldn't have anyone listening or watching anymore. Yeah. Bryce is here. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. It's a nice Thursday here in Kansas in the States, I guess for everybody other than you in Australia, where it's already flipped to Friday. It's getting hot here in Kansas here, late July, early August. Not looking forward to that. I start school in like 2 weeks. I think I have to report back. So I do miss the kids. I miss the structure. I miss my kids being in school, but there is something fun and free about the summertime. So it's definitely a change of schedule whenever school starts back up again.
Yeah, look, it's winter time for me.
What?
So, but winter time is, not that cold, to be clear. It's like 45 degrees, right? But having said that, like this is my movie time. This is where I get to catch up on things or watch old things. Like yesterday, I watched Badlands for the first time, which is a 50-year-old movie by Terrence Malick. It was great. Fantastic movie. Had a great time. And then watched one that I think you probably have seen. Have you seen Sully?
Is that the airplane?
Yeah.
I have not. I know what it is.
Oh,
but I haven't watched it.
Bryce, you got to watch Sully. They tried to railroad this guy after he landed this plane on the Hudson and saved 155 souls.
It's only an hour and a half too. Like that.
Yeah,
that's right up
sure.
my alley. Okay.
This is one you could watch tonight. Like, hang out, have a good time. It's a beauty.
I mean, by the time we actually get done with this, it's going to be 10 o'clock. It's an early morning. The wife has to work tomorrow. My wife gets real grumpy when she doesn't get her sleep, man. So as much as I love her, that's the truth. So we better just eat and get to bed after this recording.
It's so funny to me that you eat at like 10 o'clock at night.
I haven't had supper. I have not had supper yet for the viewers. I haven't. So at the high school I used to coach at, we had to have early and late practice because we didn't have enough gyms. So every other week, our practice time was 6 to 8. And that's what it was when I was a player. That's where I went to high school as well. So it's not that weird to me, but I understand how it's weird for a lot of people.
It's definitely a little bit weird. Definitely. And like, I think my wife and I eat late sometimes. Like we'll eat, sometimes at like 8 o'clock or, 8:15, 8:30. But man, 10 o'clock, that's a rough one.
Yes.
That's a rough one. Okay. So here's what our to-do list is. We're going to talk a little bit about Andrew Nembhard signing his extension to start. Then we're going to transition into Summer League. We'll just talk about the Pacers to begin with there, just transitioning in. And then we'll kind of jump around and talk about a bunch of teams. We're really excited to kind of jump into everything that we saw from the quote-unquote veterans. I don't really know of a better terminology for these guys. The Summer League vets that have been there once before. So we'll dive into that. But first, really the only transaction news that has occurred recently is Andrew Nembhard signed this 3-year, $59 million extension. And you and I have talked a little bit on the show about Andrew Nembhard and whether or not he was going to do a deal, right? I think that his max was something like 4 years, 79 million or something like that, like right around that ballpark. They decided, and to me, if I was, Todd Ramazar, the agents there that represent Andrew Nembhard and his family, it's a hard balancing act because he is locked into a number that I think probably underpays him over the course of the years that he will be on this number. But at the same token, this is a guy that was on, minimum salaries up until this point. It's not like he's, a guy that wasn't making a lot of money or anything, but it is difficult, I think, to go through your mind and say, I'm turning down $59 million after I've only made 8, because like $60 million and 65 by the time he's done with his first 6 years of his NBA career. That's enough to live off of the rest of your life. Like, you can be completely comfortable and you can be completely happy. Many people would say they can be comfortable with $8 million, but the thing to remember is like these guys that like live and breathe and eat and sleep basketball. If you don't necessarily want to get into coaching, and I don't know if Andrew Nembhard wants to, doesn't want to, whatever, you really have to find something new, and you're starting new in your life. And like $8 million for 40 years of life is a comfortable living, but you really have to take care of your money in that case, right? This is like real life-changing money. So turning that down can often be really difficult. So to me, with Nembhard, it was always a balancing act of trying to find some upside for him to, if he's like really successful and continues to grow into the player that he's become and that we saw late in the playoffs against Boston, right? Versus locking in that money. And I thought that the 3-year, $59 million kind of number was like kind of a perfect balancing act for everybody involved, right? Because it gets him paid. He ends up hitting unrestricted free agency a little bit earlier than he would off of a 4-year deal. I think that this just tracks kind of for everybody involved.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It gets him back to unrestricted free agency when he's still at the peak of his earning power. And the other thing is, like, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but, Andrew Nembhard in the regular season, if you just look at the numbers, they don't blow you away, Sam. Like he started, 47 games, didn't average 10 points, shot really well from the field, 36% from 3, doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. Now the playoff numbers are just silly, right? 17 games started, did average 15 points on 56, 48, 77, takes care of the ball while also creating, and he's a really good defender. My point here is it's not like we have a 3-4 year sample of this or 2 or 3 playoff runs or something like that. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying he's not a really, really good player. I assume this probably locks him in as the starting backcourt with Tyrese Halliburton. But the other thing that came to mind for me is, and if I'm Andrew Nembhard, they did just take a player in the top 6 2 years ago that is a guard on this team. And what if Benedict Mathurin comes back next year and is awesome, and now Nembhard all of a sudden goes back to the bench, and now you're trying to get paid as the third guard as opposed to a starting guard or something like that. So I think you're right. I think it kind of split the difference of 3 years, he can get back on the market, make a lot of money, but also he now has 3 years to increase his value even more, becoming maybe a all NBA level defender or really showing the playoff contributions, whatever it is, over a longer sample size.
It's absolutely right. I think that this just makes, sense for everybody. He locks in money. The Pacers are going to get like to me, this is like a significant value contract now, because if you look at what he's going to be making as a percentage of the cap in 2027-28 and 2026-27, honestly, and next year as well, he's going to be making between 11 and 12% of the salary cap.
Crazy
over that time. And that is just like a dreadfully low percentage for somebody who is as good as what Andrew Nembhard has shown. Like you mentioned the regular season numbers, right?
Yeah.
If he is just like who he is in the regular season, which I think is probably a unlikely situation, right? Given what we've seen in the playoffs, given that he's younger, he's a great work ethic. He's continued to get better and better over the course of like the last 4 years of his career.
And real quick, it wasn't one series in the playoffs. It was 17 games in the playoffs,
Totally.
So like we got a substantial set of games to get those numbers.
100%. So I think that even at like the level he's shown already, he's probably a mid-level guy at the very least in the regular season. But we've seen way more from him in the playoffs to where it's very easy to project significant upside at this point. And by significant, like if he ends up being a $30 million a year player by the time he ends up, going through this contract and being, I don't think he'll be an all-star necessarily, but I can't rule it out based off of what we saw, like in those 2 Boston games. Like he was unbelievable in those games. I think I would project him to not be an all-star though. I would project him to be like a high level starting combo, guard who can shift over to the 1, play the 1 whenever Tyrese Halliburton is out of the game, play at the 2 whenever Halliburton is out there. So they have multiple point guards who can knock down shots, play with the ball in hand, play in ball screens. There's also like this factor too. Like, I think that Jonesy here brings this up in the YouTube comments. Nembhard has done nothing but play well since he first suited up for us in summer league. That's 100% true. Take care of your guys. Like if you're Indiana, absolutely make sure and take care of your guys and make sure that they're happy there. It's just like the easiest thing in the world, in my opinion, to make sure that everyone that plays for you is ecstatic to be there and making sure that, they feel like if I do well here, I'm going to get paid. And yeah, like you mentioned Mathurin, like to me, I know that, both of us really liked Mathurin coming into the draft, but like Andrew Nembhard has surpassed him
absolutely
in their importance at this point. There's just not another way to put it. He to me is the guy that, I really like Jarris Walker. We'll talk about Jarris in a second here and some of what he showed at Summer League, but of the guys they've drafted in the last 2 drafts, I do think Nembhard is like pretty clearly the most important one that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and that wasn't me like projecting or predicting that Mathurin's going to come back and like take over the starting spot. I'm just saying it's not out of the realm of possibility. What if, and obviously I'm not wishing this, what if Andrew rolled an ankle and is out for a few weeks and Ben comes back year 3 and is just killing and is the player I thought he was going to be coming out of Arizona? Again, I'm not projecting that. I'm just saying that's a world and that's a possibility that could play out, and another reason to lock in your money. But you brought it. Nembhard's just such a perfect fit for this team, playing off of Tyrese Halliburton. He doesn't need high usage, but he can be efficient. That's what's crazy to me. When I look at the playoff numbers, he averaged 15 points a game on under 11 attempts. Only 3.5 3. Like he doesn't need all the usage, but then he can make shots when you need it. He's that defensive guy on the perimeter that you absolutely have to have next to Tyrese Halliburton. And then also, as you mentioned, he can take the on-ball reps when Tyrese is off the floor. Like those guys are just so valuable, being able to do these different roles. I've given Kyrie Irving a lot of love for similar type of player and role in terms of playing off of Luka when he needed to, and then playing on ball when Luka's off the floor. I really value players that can do that, because I don't think it's as easy as people think in terms of that mentality switch.
Yeah, agree. Totally agree. And you mentioned the defense as well early on. He is a really solid defender. He's not like an all league defender or anything, but he's a guy that gives you like positive value on the defensive end because he takes on tougher assignments. He's consistently in the right places. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this deal. I think it just makes sense for everybody across the board.
Yep.
Okay. They also signed James Johnson. There have been a couple other things, like Spencer Dinwiddie went to Dallas, and Killian Hayes signed today. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Killian at the end of the show.
No, we won't.
Just to make you very happy.
No, I don't want
to. But let's go to Indiana and the Summer League stuff. So we're going to start talking about Summer League stuff. We're just going to start with Indiana because it's a nice natural transition here. And then we're going to kind of filter through a bunch of teams. So the Indiana Pacers, the 2 guys that I mostly want to talk about are Jarris Walker and Ben Shepherd, right? I've seen a very mixed reaction to Jarris Walker's Summer League performance.
Interesting.
Some people really liked the fact that they let him explore his skill set a little bit and let him try to figure out who he can be on the ball, really gave him a lot of reps in that way. Other people, I've talked to a couple people in the league, and this is like a constant conversation. And maybe this is something that we can start with here, even beyond this, is what is the purpose of Summer League? Other people didn't love that Jarris like had all of these reps and thought that, he turned the ball over a crazy amount and it didn't look quite as effective on the defensive end and things like that, right? So this is a fun question for you in light of Jarris Walker, right? At Summer League, and this genuinely, I had like a conversation with a top 4 person in a front office yesterday about this, and he's told me it's like a constant push pull, right? Between, okay, do we want to give this guy, and he wasn't talking about Jarris specifically, but somebody else, do we want to give this guy real freedom to be able to explore what his skill set is and what he's capable of? Or do we want to give him reps in the role that he's going to play for the team, right? Jarris Walker is not going to have on-ball reps with the Indiana Pacers all that frequently this season. Maybe off the bench occasionally if Pascal is out for a game and Tyrese Halliburton's on the bench, right? Like maybe they'll give him some freedom. But by and large, he's going to be there for his defense, his, aggressive motor, rebounding, ability to shoot, hopefully at some point. That's a really critical skill for Jarris. But it's going to be a lot more of a limited role. Indiana let him go at Summer League and let him try to be able to expand his skill set, get more reps, playing on the ball in some way. So what do you prefer is my question. Do you prefer a player playing within his potential role in the NBA, which is more like what Ben Shepherd did, frankly, for the Indiana Pacers, versus giving somebody reps to maybe expand what their skill set can be, explore the studio space, as Christopher Walken would say, and figure out, what they can be down the road and get those chances?
Yeah, I think it's player specific. And as long as the team and the player have a very specific idea of what they're going into Summer League with, like it's very calculated. So with Jarris Walker, I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay, like sending him there and going, if we're going to play Jarris Walker for 4 games at Summer League, 34 minutes a game, I was okay with them letting him do. I mean, I put it in my notes, like he's not probably going to do this in the NBA, but it's because I didn't think it looked great, but I was okay seeing. I mean, I guess I feel like they just had a G League season of him doing, I guess, I don't know. I shouldn't speak on that. Maybe he was doing the same thing in the G League last year. But I don't know that I needed to see him in the role that we're talking about. I believe that Jarris Walker can rebound, and maybe the other option would have been like, Jarris, we don't care what you do offensively. We actually just want you to go stand in the corner. Let's see how good you can be defensively. We want you to be the best player at Summer League on the defensive end of the floor and just expend all of your energy on that end. But as long as there's like a very calculated and deliberate plan, I'm okay with any of it. And so I can't be mad if this was Indiana's option. The only pushback I would have is I don't think this is Jarris's game. I don't think it's going to be Jarris's game. That's my opinion. I think other people believe in this more than me. And so I don't know that I was as about seeing it, but I was okay. Like, hey, you want to try it for 4 or 5 games, see what it looks like? Okay, cool. I have no major qualms with them wanting to see what it would look like. But I mean, the turnover, in fairness, the turnovers were pretty bad. I mean, I think he averaged over 5 per game in these games, but I think it gives you a sample size of what he could be and how he was able to handle it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like it is just really hard sometimes. Like it's genuinely really difficult to find guys that have like Jarris Walker's potential, right? As a 6'8", 6'7" wing with a 7'2" wingspan and some ball skill and passing ability, because he can really pass. Like that's the thing that I like about him.
Absolutely.
While also trying to foster what he is, which is like this energy defender who we loved at Houston, right? Like I had Jarris, I think at like 6 that year. I loved him. Like I thought he was a fantastic player, and I still really like Jarris Walker, to be clear. I'm still like very in. It's just trying to figure out what the role is going to be, especially having re-signed Obi Toppin, giving Pascal Siakam all of this money long term. Honestly, like I say this, lightly, not pressing the gas on it hard, but I wonder if they were thinking, hey, let's let some scouts for other teams see that he has some skill on the ball. Maybe a lot of these guys didn't get a chance to go to G League games this year where he averaged like 21 and 6 or something like that, 20 and 6, 20 and 8, who knows. But he gets in front of really high level executives, showcases some ball skill, and maybe they see some upside there that gives him a little bit more trade value than what we previously got to see, right? And even if that's just like a small piece of the equation, right? I don't know that the Indiana Pacers tend to think that way. I think that they tend to be more of a developmentally conscious organization in terms of the way that they go about their business. And, they have a great developmental track record at this point, undeniably. So I don't know, like I'm interested in a lot of different outcomes here in terms of why they did it. But in terms of how he actually played, obviously like was able to, if I remember correctly, like knock down shots, right?
Yeah.
Like it felt like he shot well.
No, he shot extremely well. Yeah, 46% from 3 on 6 attempts.
Yeah.
So
Felt like he drilled
really well.
shots. One issue with him has always been kind of the finishing consistently, right? Around the basket. Didn't really do that well at Summer League, unfortunately, but a lot of those felt like to me, not reps that were created for him, but things that he had to self-create as a driver, right? And, you would expect that percentage to go up. The fact that he shot it well to me is more important than anything here. The turnovers were a catastrophe, right? Like he looked out of control a decent amount of the time.
A lot, yeah.
At Summer League, and like that's whatever. But this is a top 8 pick, I guess, because they traded down from 7 to 8, who had a real shooting question mark entering his rookie season, right? That was the biggest thing we wondered about Jarris. Would he knock down shots? Could he do it at volume? We now have 19 games of him in the G League of drilling 38% from 3 on 7 attempts per game. And then we now have this little sample of, 4 games?
4 games.
Of him drilling 46% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. Look, this is 23 games. It's not going to tell us everything we need to know about Jarris Walker as a shooter, but this is real skill growth that I think is incredibly important for his development, when also accounting for the fact that I think he can play on defense. Like, I'm not worried about the defense. He'll be able to go there. I think Jarris looks like a really good prospect still. Like, I'm extremely in on Jarris Walker at this point.
My biggest worry is, where did the minutes come from? Because I think I added it up on a recent podcast I did where I guessed over on Front Office Show. They have 56 million tied up into the 4 position already this season between Pascal and Obi. I'll also say, and I'm not saying this was specific to Jarris, I would wonder sometimes if teams go, you know what? And I'll just use Jarris as an example because that's who we're talking about. You go play with the ball in the hand, Jarris. Like, if this is who you are, go do it in Summer League and show us how good you are at it. Almost letting them say, like, here, put it on film, and then we're going to go back to Indianapolis. We're going to watch this, and we're going to show you why you're not ready to do this. So during the season, whenever you get mad that you're not getting on-ball reps, we can show you Summer League against rookies and sophomores where you were turning it over 5.5 times a game. And please don't aggregate that. I was just using Jarris as an example of what maybe teams could do in some of these situations. And then the other thing is, I remember being in college, and like, you would have scout team guys that would go crazy in these different roles. But I always thought it was a really good part of growth for younger players playing on the scout team, because you had to play as Cam Spencer one game, and then you had to play as Desmond Claude another. Like, I'm just throwing out random Big East. Like, you just have to play as random dudes, and it kind of helps you grow your game. Like, maybe you untap something you didn't know was there, or a confidence in some other aspect. So that's why I don't always mind this, especially when we're not talking about rookies, Sam. With rookies, I want that role a little bit more defined, like very specific, a little bit maybe more what you're looking for in their rookie year. These second, third year guys, I'm a little more okay if we play around and, as you say, explore the studio space.
Yeah, I think that's generally where I tend to sit on it as well. Look, Ben Shepherd, on the other hand, played exactly what his role is, but I think that's more because he just doesn't have a ton of ball skill. Right?
Sure.
And that's totally fine. Like, he's not super strong, but he's really smart. he showed that he can play a role in a playoff series off the bench.
Yep.
Earlier this year. He didn't have to come to Summer League and show a ton to me. And I don't like, he's not a Summer League kind of player. Like, that's not what his role is ever going to be. So like him scoring 7 points per game or whatever in Summer League, like I don't really care all that much.
I mean, I think what I said is I have more notes from the NBA playoffs last year on Ben Shepherd than I do on Summer League. And I think those NBA playoff notes are the ones that I'll buy into a little bit more, where he played 20 minutes a night, shot 38% from three, gave real minutes during 17 games, as opposed to the 2 games he played in Summer League and then just didn't shoot the ball well. And I think we've learned that. What did he take? 8 attempts. I mean, if you played 2 games for it, yeah. I mean, he took 8 attempts. He went 2 of 8. I think he'll be okay. I'll take the sample size we saw last year more than from Summer League.
Yeah. Look, I think that's right. That's where I sit on it as well. And any thoughts on Oscar Tshiebwe, Kendall Brown, any of the other guys that we saw? Like, to me, Kendall Brown looked like maybe they should try to roll over that 2-way spot, to be honest with you. Or no, he signed to a real deal, but he's like non-guaranteed. I might try to roll that over, was my thought.
I wasn't overly, like, of the guys, he was probably the one I was least impressed with, unfortunately. Oscar, I don't know that he's ever an NBA big, but that dude, you better box him out. Like, I'll take him on my G League team because he's going to I think he averaged 16 rebounds a game in the G League last year, 6 offensive, something absolutely insane. It was ridiculous. Quentin Jackson was a little bit interesting, but I think I'm in the same spot with Kendall Brown.
Yep. Okay. Let's go to the Memphis Grizzlies next. We've got Gigi Jackson, Scottie Pippen Jr., Jake LaRavia. Those are the big ones. Let's start with Gigi, because I don't totally know what to make of it. In all honesty, he showed a tremendous upside and aptitude for scoring the basketball at Summer League. So, like, statistically, right, finished top 3 in scoring, basically, if you take out the guys who only played 1 game. Averaged 22 points, shot 45% from the field, 38% from 3 on 8 attempts per game. Averaged 8.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists versus only 2 turnovers. Generally, I want to love what I saw, and part of me just kind of, I can't like completely fall in for some reason. Like, I want to, but man, like the way he plays basketball is just like not all that equivalent toward playing with high usage guys. He has to be the guy, it felt like, in these games on the court. And, last year he got a chance to really explore the space and like not play with a lot of really great players because that team was injured to hell. Right. I'm not saying he can't figure this out. Like, Gigi Jackson is so young still and has like all the time in the world to get all this together. Right. I think that this is a positive step. I think playing as well as he did in Summer League is undeniably positive, and like we should be excited. I think like if we were redrafting the 2023 draft, Gigi Jackson is a lottery pick at this point, is where I'm at. I want to see more of him in a role, though. Like we talked about giving these guys chances and like, what does it look like? Giving these guys on ball reps, letting them explore the space a little bit. I almost with him want to see it scaled down a little bit more.
So I was going to say this and see how crazy it sounded. Here's the thing. It was impressive, right? But it was almost
super impressive. Like, that's the thing. We're kind of shitting on it a little bit, and I don't want to do that. Like,
but the reason
good.
But we saw him do it in the NBA, Sam. Like, that's why it's not like, that's why we're not swooning over it, is because he averaged almost 15 points a game in 50 games played in the league. And so who cares if he goes and scores 22 a game in Summer League? We all know Gigi Jackson can score, especially in that role. So what I was going to say that is kind of crazy. What would you have thought if Memphis said, Gigi, go stand in the corner over there and catch and shoot threes, cut off the ball, offensive rebound. You don't get to play with the ball in the hand. You don't get to run an ISO. You don't get to run a ball screen. You have to imagine that Scottie Pippen Jr. is Ja Morant, and who would play the role of Desmond, whoever's playing the role of Desmond, Cam Spencer, your guys is Desmond Bain. And this is what you have to do.
One of Cam or Jalen Wells. Yeah, totally works.
You know what I mean? And it's like, let's see if you can do this. Let's see if you kind of have the discipline to do that. Because that's the only reason I've pumped the brakes just a little bit with GG, Sam. Like, everybody's super excited and he deserves it. Like, he kind of got shit on throughout the draft process. And I don't know how much of it was deserved. And I don't want to get into all of that, but he's come back. He scored the ball well. He's taken advantage of his opportunities. The only reason I've pumped the brakes is, how does this look with the dudes, like the real dudes on the floor this next season? I hope he figures it out, but once he does, that's when I'll be all in.
Yeah. GG Jackson, in his last 37 games of the season in the NBA last year, started 18 of those, averaged 17 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, shooting 42, 35, 76. Like, for a 19-year-old, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, he has like natural hooper feel. I just don't see a lot of like the natural role player feel, kind of.
Sure.
And that's what worries me. And that can come, like, I think that honestly, playing with guys like Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, et cetera, like all those guys, he's going to have to fit in, and those guys will be around. So it makes me think that, like, I don't want to over index on it, because I want to see what it looks like with these guys before sitting here and going, oh, this is going to be a problem. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be clear. Like, I just don't know how this is going to look.
Same.
He had a play in one of the last 2 games of Summer League where, like, he crossed a dude up, like hit a behind the back dribble, and then like took the ball in his right hand and just like lifted it over the top of the defender, like with ease with one hand, and then like took like a little shot. And it was just like, that is like such natural. Like, we talk about feel, like feel comes in different respects, right?
Sure.
He has this just natural feel for how defenders are playing against him in such a really creative way. And yet, I can't say I enjoyed watching him play basketball at Summer League in the aggregate. Like, there were moments that I loved where you see the flashes and you're like, holy shit. And then there are these other moments where it just feels selfish. Like, I was sitting next to, overseas coach, let's say, and we were talking about like it was a guy who had no idea who GG Jackson was, right? And he's like, oh, this dude looks pretty interesting. I was like, yeah, he's like a teenager, was a top 5 recruit, unbelievable talent. Like, there's no, like, he will never be overseas in all likelihood. But honestly, like, I don't know how I would feel about him going overseas right now, because I don't know if he would have the requisite, like, like team skills, playing team basketball, to project success there immediately, right? Even though he has all the talent in the world. I'm not saying he doesn't have that ability. I'm saying I don't know how I would project it yet, basically. So, and then he like comes down and like drills, 2 threes in a row, and the coach is like, yeah, man, he's like cooking. And I just go, yeah, so he's going to get this ball here, and there's no chance he's passing this ball. Like, literally a 0% chance. And he like jacked up like a terrible 3, right?
Yeah.
So it's a hard conversation to have, because the talent is so abundantly clear. And I am so fascinated to see where his career goes. And truly, again, NBA teams are searching the world for guys who are 6'8" with like a 7-foot wingspan, who can create shots like this, who are 19, 20 years old, who bring so much to the table. And because of that, you would have to take him. If you were redrafting all of the 2023 guys, you would unequivocally have to take this dude in the lottery. And it's just a bet that you have to make. But I can't sit here and tell you that I know how this is going to go either.
maybe they need it, right? Maybe they need that shot creation off the bench whenever Jaw's out. And
I think they
Desmond
do for sure.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like maybe that's the role. Maybe we never see like I'm sitting here talking about, hey, playing on the floor with Jaw and Bane and Jaren Jackson. Maybe we don't ever see that from GG Jackson. And in the regular season, I think that's extremely valuable. And even in the playoffs, it can be. It may be in less minutes because usually the starters start playing more minutes in those situations. But you give me a guy that can score the basketball the way GG Jackson can in a Western Conference that is what it is. And that's going to be an X factor in some nights where Jaw has to rest or Jaw gets tired or Jaw's in foul trouble or whatever. They have an off night. Having guys that can cook off the bench, I think can get undervalued at times because we see what happens to those guys in the playoffs. But I still think 82 game players are valued. And I'm not limiting GG to an 82 game player this early in his career. I'm just saying that this could be a possibility. And even if it is, there's still a lot of value in that because you got to get to the regular season and get to a certain number of wins, spots, home court, all of those things.
Totally agree. The guy that I thought should have won MVP of Summer League is
so good. He was awesome. You could tell he knew the game better than everybody else he played against. He just stole the ball whenever he wanted, Sam. If he wanted to steal the ball, he was going to steal it.
Which is what's so interesting because I always felt like when I watched Scotty, throughout like his pro career to this point at least, I always felt like he was just very sped up, right? And I didn't know what to do with that in terms of like projecting a role, but at Summer League, like he was completely in control of every single thing he was doing. He was finding teammates. Like you said, defensively, I thought he was really impactful on that end. When I watched him, I was like, this guy is a real NBA backup point guard, I think. And by the way, that is a sneaky need for Memphis because yes, they have Ja Morant, but Ja tends to miss 20 games a year, right? Just the reality of like his injury situation because he plays so hard and jumps at everything and plays like such a fearless brand of basketball, right? Yes. You have Desmond Bane, you have Marcus Smart, like who can take some on-ball reps, but I don't know that I would want them playing like full-scale backup point guard. Derrick Rose, I think, is a guy that is in all likelihood there more for locker room purposes than anything. Just having a veteran around who's been there forever. This is a team that I think that Derek and Marcus are their only two guys over 30 right now.
Maybe that is nope, that's correct. Nobody else.
Yeah.
And this is Marcus's age 30 season. Nobody else is even in their age 29 season. You have Diakot and Brandon Clark at 28.
Yeah. So like not a lot of guys that have like veteran experience. Right. So I don't know, man, like Scottie Pippen Jr. to me, I think he might get like pretty real minutes for them at some point. At some point this year, I think Scottie Pippen Jr. will play for them. I think if I'm them, trying to figure out how you manage the end of this roster situation is pretty interesting. So they do have an extra spot right now, I believe, but that's because Luke Kennard has not re-signed yet.
There you go.
They also have Mamadi Diakite here, who has this or like a partial guarantee. I think that to trade him in that deal that, I think he got, $1 million or something like that. I'm wondering if they cut Diakite, sign Scottie Pippen Jr. to like a good deal that, locks him in, or do they use like their exception, this ability to like create an extra roster spot on like Cam Spencer, right? That's another guy that honestly they should probably look to sign to a longer deal. Also, having this extra roster spot after having moved Zaire Williams potentially, or having Diakite in this spot as well, gives them a lot of flexibility in terms of trades right now.
Yeah.
If they would want to try and like do a weird consolidation deal or take something back. Like you never know what's going to happen here. So like I think we're probably like a little bit of time away from them figuring out what exactly they're going to do. But Scottie Pippen Jr. to me was the best player I think I saw at Summer League just overall. I felt the same way about Sam Merrill last year. Watching him, he just looked a level above like most of these dudes. And Sam Merrill, was a good rotation player for the Cavs this year. I think that Scottie Pippen Jr. would be a good rotation player for the Memphis Grizzlies this year if he ends up having to play. And I think that he probably will end up in a pretty useful situation for them.
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. Diakite got 1.4 million guaranteed, according to Spot Track here, as part of that trade with the Knicks that was made. So, or excuse me, wait, no, that's part of New York Knicks Brooklyn trade. So maybe it was guaranteed before. I'll have to look at
that might have been the weird Zaire deal.
Okay,
they might have had to like include something there. I can't remember exactly.
Okay, but yeah, with the Nets. With the Nets. So yeah, no, I thought he was awesome. Yeah, you're right. Like it's a position that maybe he gets some minutes, even if it's not like he's penciled in there in the rotation. Whenever a guy misses time or something like that, he's able to step in there. Yeah, I liked him. I thought he was really good. There's some other guys I thought played well, but he was definitely one. When you watch Memphis play, you're just like, I think the other thing that stood out, and I think it does with these older guys, these what we're calling vets, they know how to get to the free throw line, and he got there almost 8 times a game. And whenever they needed a bucket or there was a run, it just seemed like Scottie played with pace, got where he wanted to on the floor, and then drew a foul and got himself to the free throw line.
Yeah, passing and playmaking as well was just really high level. Like he consistently found his teammates in the right spots where they wanted the ball. Just a really, really effective player. And then now this is where the fun conversation starts. So what did you think of Jake LaRavia?
Yeah, I thought he had some really good flashes. He shot the ball decent, 37%, almost 50% from the field. Really good from the free throw line. Another guy that found a way to the free throw line. I thought he passed the ball well at times. His defensive playmaking really stood out. I think he had a game we had like 6 steals or something like that. So I felt like Jake really needed a good summer league, and I thought he played well. I thought I think it was the championship game, he was playing really well. He went on a little bit of a stretch right at the end where there was a few things I would have liked to see done better, but I think he had like 32 in that game or something like that. And he was nicked up in and out of all the summer league games also. So like, now I thought Jake played very well, and he's another player I'm interested, because Jake compared to maybe like a Gigi, Jake is going to fit into a role. Like you're going to be able to put him in there. He's going to know, I'm going to cut off the ball. I'm going to offensive rebound. I'm going to sit here and knock down this shot. I think he's, defensively, like he knows his role, and he's going to be able to fill that role that you need from him. And so I think that's one positive that he really has for this team.
Yeah. Like I think that he, played his worst game in the first game. And I think that people kind of like jumped on that a little bit. His last like 3 games really, because he only played like 3 games realistically, because he got hurt in the Pelicans game, if I remember correctly, and kind of sat out the rest of it. Right.
Yes. Yeah. He only played. Yeah. So he only played going back to before Vegas. Yeah. He only played 7 minutes in that game. So he essentially played 4 games. Yep. You're right.
Yep. So like, yeah, I mean, when I watched him, I thought he looked really impactful and effective on the court. Defensively, like you said, his hands were outstanding. Knocked down shots at a reasonable clip. It felt like to me, like didn't like absolutely snipe, which I think he probably has to be like a pretty real shooter, like a very real shooter. Maybe not an elite shooter. Can probably get away with being like a 38, 39% 3-point shooter, but has to be that guy. I don't know if we're there yet with him, but when you're that big and you have like really good hands on defense and you have the ability to kind of make plays across the court, I do think that there's enough there where you can see some growth potential.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see how the wing spot plays out in general for this team. I mean, do we think they start Morant, Bane, Smart? That's the starting lineup?
Yeah, I would guess so.
With Jaren Jackson and then Zach Edey? And then
yeah, I'm thinking that they do that, and then they bring in Vince Williams kind of off the bench as like the 6th man. And then after that, it's, Brandon Clark, Gigi Jackson, Santi will certainly play. Yeah, Santi's a real dude. Yeah. So like I think they run like 9 to 10 deep without even getting into the Laravia, Jalen Wells, Cam Spencer, Scottie Pippen Jr., like that crew.
No, so that's what I'm saying, that like Jake could be a top 8, 9, 10 guy, definitely even if it's the 10th guy on that. I think we counted 9 guys right there. And then it's him, Pippen Jr., Jalen Wells, the guys you're talking about there. Cause I don't think, like I'm like you, I don't think Derrick Rose is playing a lot of minutes for that. And obviously it depends on what they do with that final spot as well. But my point is, I think there's a chance for him to get into the rotation.
Kennard too.
Yeah. Oh, I keep forgetting about Kennard because he's not listed on here right now. That's a good point. Yep. So it will be interesting to see how all of this plays out. It's a very deep team. And this Memphis team, I know we're not really doing this right now. It's going to be very interesting because they kind of seem like a forgotten team, but they got a lot of high-end talent. And then we're talking about a lot of depth and young depth as well on this team.
I think that they're also a team, like many that we've talked about here, where they are ripe for a consolidation trade.
Agreed
at some point this
1000%.
year.
Yeah.
Like at some point they're going to have to make a choice. They've, moved off of David Roddy, moved off of Zaire Williams, some of those guys. But, again, like to me, it feels like a consolidation spot more than anything. The other guy we have to talk about with Memphis is Jay Huff, right? So Jay Huff is a guy that we, kind of couldn't avoid talking about on the rookie show. Because we just really like the way he played.
He's awesome.
So he has signed a 2-way deal with the Memphis Grizzlies, and he played with Orlando at Summer League. Do you have the numbers in front of you for Huff? Because
yeah,
go ahead.
16.8 points, only 5 rebounds, so that's probably something we should discuss. 1.6 assists, barely any steals, 2.2 blocks on 62% from the field. This is important. 36% from 3 on almost 3 attempts, 78% from the free throw line for Jay Huff in 5 games.
So I want to be like very clear with people. Jay Huff has been like kind of a guy that I've been tracking as one of the most like underrated assets in the G League for quite a while now. I think like very obviously he should be on an NBA roster, because guys who can step away and shoot it and who can really protect the rim are very significant value adds to just about any team off the bench, right? It's a little bit surprising to me that nobody has decided to go down this road and sign him. Like last year in the G League, he averaged 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 3.4 blocks per game, while shooting 58% from the field, 39% from 3 on nearly 5 attempts per game, and 86% from the line. Like Jay Huff can really play, I think. Like he is a 26 years old, right? So you would expect him to play well in a summer league setting, but he's gotten his body into like awesome shape. He's throwing down dunks, in transition, really aggressively, right? And the shooting is pretty valuable. The rim protection is super valuable. This is a home run 2-way to me. If he ends up playing a real role at some point, that wouldn't blow my mind in Memphis.
He caught me from the very first game. The first game I watched there was Orlando, Cleveland, I believe. And what caught my eye initially was like, who is this dude with these dunks? Like he was just, I think it's a good point. He is 26. You would expect him to kind of dominate the way he did, but we critique guys when they don't. So, the fact that he was doing what he was supposed to, I think is meaningful. Really glad that he got a 2-way. I think he absolutely deserves that. You would like to see him rebound a little bit better, but he protected the rim. And then the ability to, even if it's just potential, like even if people still want to say potential, going back to the college numbers, he showed a little bit of flashes to be able to shoot it. The free throw percentage was really good as last year, not as much the years before. It's been good in the G League. The sample size, the attempts aren't crazy, but it's enough. Like, I'll buy into that for a 2-way big that just kind of showed the level of intensity he played with, some of the athleticism. If he can really stretch the floor, I will take that. Like that is something I'm willing to try to bet on. And so I think this is a really smart move by the Grizzlies.
170 attempts over the last 2 years in the G League, has made 39% of them.
That's substantial, man. That's not nothing.
It's not nothing. Yeah. So I think the shot looks clean. I think that he will be a shooter. Like I mean, God, he can really. I think he is an NBA backup big. Is my take. So
Yeah,
good
like,
work by
would you
Memphis
be
getting
upset
him
if
off
he
this
was your
two-way deal.
team's fifth big? Like, what if he was the third center on
Well,
your team?
forget fifth, like fourth. Like I think he's
Sure.
like a third or fourth big potentially.
So here's
Um,
here's where this could be really smart, right? What if part of a consolidation trade for the Grizzlies is one of the wings we've talked about, an Asante Aldama or a Brandon Clark, and now like we don't need a big back in return. We don't. We'll move Jay Huff into that fourth big, fifth, like wherever like we think he's there. Like now you already have that guy on your roster. This is where these type of moves pay dividends down the road. Is you don't have to worry about that. Like we can put Santi in this because we have the next guy in line to step into that role.
Yep, I think that's right. Okay, let's go now to Orlando because that's who Jay Huff actually played with, right?
Right.
Let's start with their, lottery pick last year, Anthony Black. What was your opinion on Anthony Black at Summer League?
I mean, the game I saw, he was awesome. He was really good. And it goes beyond the box score numbers. If you look at the box score, like it's not crazy, right? He only took 8 attempts a game overall from the field, averaged 12.5 points, 4.5 assists, 2.5 rebounds. It just, my friend texted me, he's like, Anthony Black has been the best player on the floor. And it's not even like, he just was so impressed, just the way he controlled the game, ran the show defensively, all of that. I thought he was really good. Now, I can't say I watched every minute of his game, so maybe it wasn't as good going forward, but I thought he was really good in that game that I watched.
Yeah, so AB only played 2 games, right? So he played that game against the Cavs that you're talking about, where I agree. I thought he like completely orchestrated everything on the court. And then he played a game against the Pelicans the next game where I felt he was like kind of invisible, honestly, and like kind of felt, into the tapestry of things. And like it wasn't the kind of performance you would hope to see from like a rotation player coming back for Summer League and second year guy that you took in the top half of the lottery last year. So he was so good in the Cavs game where like I'm not going to overreact to that second game. Like he was awesome in that game. He dominated. Just looking at the numbers there, he had 20 points on 6 of 9 from the field, got to the free throw line a bunch, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals. It was just like he felt like he was all over the place at the end of the day. It does come down to the shooting for him. He's gonna have to shoot threes at some point. Like that is, to me, the real value add for him. He has to knock down shots because to me, he's probably not a primary player. I think he is more of like that secondary player. But if he shoots, he is a serious, useful rotation player at some point.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the way he defends. I think that's one thing that's always kind of impressive. And I think he has a good feel for the game where you can play him off the ball. I think he'll recognize cuts and offensive rebounds and all of that. But you look at this roster and it's like, where do his minutes come? Because I think we know what the starting backcourt is. And then off the bench, you still have Cole Anthony. They brought back Gary Harris. So who does
it's a lot of overlap with Jalen?
Yeah. So where does he fit into the equation is what I'm curious to see for AB.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure yet, to be honest with you. I'm really interested to try and track, his career at this point. He is one of those guys that I wonder if he is a trade chip, in the same way that Dyson Daniels, ended up being for New Orleans for a real difference maker. But we'll see. He'll play this year. Like he'll definitely play this year. I think he showed enough to where I buy him continuing to grow and mature into that role. And he played a decent amount last year too, and was pretty solid, right? So the question is like, so they have KCP who will play 30 minutes, Jalen Suggs who will play 30 minutes. That's 60 minutes a game there for 2 spots. He has to beat out Gary Harris, Jet Howard, Cole Anthony, who will get probably 20 minutes a game, you would think. So that's 80 minutes out of 96. So there's probably 16 minutes left remaining, let's say, somewhere between 10 and 16 minutes. And he has to beat out Gary Harris and Jet Howard and win those minutes, right? So, and obviously we'll see if he can do that. And there will be games where Jalen Suggs sits and games where KCP sits
Yeah.
and things like that. So, being able to play the 1 and 2 should be able to find him some minutes here and there. But they have a really good backup guard in Cole Anthony where they don't need him to necessarily like run the show too. When you have Jalen Suggs out there and you have Paulo and Franz being their initiators for the starters. So it'll be interesting. He's like a chess piece to me, which will be fun to track. The next guy here is Jet Howard. You mentioned to me you thought Jet played pretty well, so I'll give the floor to you.
No. I said Jet shot the piss out of the ball. That's what I said. Jet shot
Fair
the
point.
ball. Jet shot the ball really well, which is something that he did. He shot 48% on 7 attempts, scored it really well, was good overall from the field. The thing with Jet is always going to be the same thing with me. How much does he defend? What else does he provide? He averaged 1 rebound. He grabbed 3 rebounds in 3 games. That's the other stuff. Like, I think he shot it well in the G League this year, shot it well in those 3 games. So, okay, the shot's going to go. That's great. Is he going to be able to do the other things? How good can he be defensively? Can he find other ways to contribute? Yeah, he shot 38% on almost 10 attempts in the G League this season. So I think that's where it maybe left a little bit for me is how much other stuff can he bring to the table?
That's it. He has to show that he can defend and has to show that he can, he makes really good passing reads within like structure, I think is the easiest way to put it. And then he kind of, continues to, I think, like get a little flustered at times if things kind of break down and he has to react and like read what's happening a little bit. But the passing is, he'll be able to pass at some point. I think like he sees the court seemingly well enough. He knows where to like throw the ball and is certainly not a selfish player by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, defensively, like it's really what it comes down to is he has to defend on a real level. He can't just be you can't only be a shooter. Those guys don't get paid, as we saw this summer in the NBA. You have to, even at 6'7", like you have to really defend your guy. And he's young. Like we hope that'll come, I think is the way to put it.
Yep.
Okay. I don't really need to talk about anybody else here. With the Orlando Magic. Let's move to the Charlotte Hornets, who had the best player at Summer League playing in Brandon Miller. He was very good. He looked a little bit bored, honestly, in the game in the first half when he was playing. It felt like he was like kind of working his way into it and then was awesome the rest of like the game. It was pretty funny to watch him. Like he drilled 5 out of 10 from 3 and had 8 rebounds and like was clearly just like kind of out there playing around a little bit. It was an interesting game from Brandon Miller, but he played 1 and then shut it down. Do you have any quick thoughts on Brandon Miller's first Summer League game beyond why in the world was he there?
No, I'm good. Like I don't need to evaluate Brandon Miller on the Summer League. I think there's bigger things for him this upcoming season that I'm excited to evaluate him on.
What did you think of Nick Smith? Because that felt like the guy that was probably most important here at Summer League for the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, like I've always been a Nick Smith believer. Like I was a fan even coming out of high school. I tried to believe in it. Like it's just inefficient, right, Sam? Like 33% from the field, 31% from 3 on 8 attempts. Essentially a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. I think one thing with Nick is like he's got to slow down. Seems like I love the energy he plays with, but it seems like he's always running 100 miles an hour, and so he's got to really hone that in and really control it. And so I think a guy playing, a guy in his second year, you would at least like to see those efficiency numbers. And again, like I don't want to get carried away on shooting numbers. It's still a 4-game sample. Would Nick play? Yeah, 5 games. So it's still a smaller sample size. Guys can go through cold stretches, but I would have liked to see it just be a little bit more efficient, from Nick Smith Jr.
I would have too, to be honest. It's just the frame still to me. It really, really is. He's just skinny. Like he's really, really skinny, and it's hard for him to score inside.
I was gonna say, it's one thing when you look skinny on an NBA floor because like whenever you look at skinny at summer league, to me, it stands out even more. You know what I mean? Cause like it's guys that, really aren't NBA bodies, and that maybe that's why they're not going to the NBA. Maybe they have the skill level, but they don't have the physicality or the athleticism. Whenever you look skinny like he did at summer league, it really stands out, and like in a negative way. And so like, you would just like to see him fill out that frame a little bit more. I still buy the skill level, but yeah, I don't know. I hope he figures it out.
I'll say like I liked his defensive energy.
Yeah,
this time at least. Like
sure.
it felt like they had him like guard like good perimeter players most of the time. When I saw him at summer league, which was good. I felt like he did like a pretty okay job for the most part on the ball. Off the ball, he's still super jumpy and like flying all over the place, which you mentioned earlier on. But I liked the fact that he did seem to like really care on defense, which was good. Still skinny though. Like it's going to be a problem for him in the NBA. Like he's going to get pushed around and bullied if he's not playing the point guard. And, maybe, with them, you can have him guard point guards and have like LaMelo guard 2s and 3s and play more off the ball and just let him kind of like heat up opposing players, on the ball. But yeah, Nick is in a challenging spot if he can't be more efficient as a scorer, I think.
Yep. I agree.
I liked what I saw Jake Stevens. I liked what I saw, Matt Morgan. Good God. Like that dude caught absolute fire in one of those last games. It was ridiculous. Xavier Simpson was really fun in terms of like passing and playmaking. Any of those guys, I think Jake Stevens is probably the one that has the best chance to be an NBA guy at some point, but probably Europe guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like fascinated looking at Matt Morgan's college numbers. This dude shot over 7 attempts from 3 a game going back to his freshman year at Cornell.
Shout out Cornell, baby.
Amazing. He almost took 1,000 3-point attempts in his college career, and he made him at 38% clip. Like just insane stuff. That's a dude that can shoot the ball.
Yeah. The crazy thing is I think that he was really bad for the first couple of games in summer league and then just caught absolute fire the rest of the time or in that one game. And it was just
he went, the 7 for 7. So he had a stretch where of a 3-game stretch where he went 2 of 10. And then he followed it up with 4 for 9, 2 for 5, 7 for 7.
It's a little bit better than I would have thought. I saw a couple of the early ones maybe. So that would make sense. I think Jake Stevens is probably the only one there that is an NBA guy potentially, but even then I think probably more of a European player. Okay. The Los Angeles Clippers had the guy that I think I would have voted second in MVP for this thing.
Jordan Miller.
Jordan Miller, I thought was really, really good. Was really aggressive, consistently attacked the basket. You mentioned getting to the foul line. He got to the foul line 9 times per game. Shot 55% from the field on his way to 25 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, 2.6 assists. Looked like a potential role player to me. Super active and aggressive on defense, got up and down in transition effectively. Was just super, super impactful in a summer league environment. I don't know what the role is if he's not in a super, super high level shooter, but I will say he was feeling it. He made 60% of his 4-3 attempts per game in summer. So that was almost the most important thing to see beyond the activity and the rebounding and what we know Jordan Miller is going to bring. I thought he was really, really impressive though, and looks like a potential role player for the Clippers this year.
Yeah, and he scored the ball extremely well last year in the G League, but the rebounding stands out again, as you mentioned, 6 rebounds a game in that, almost 2 offensive. Didn't do it quite as much in summer league, but whenever you shoot the ball the way he did, and then I'm glad you brought up the free throw attempts because he found a way to get to the free throw line. We watched a game that was actually one of the games we sat next to each other and watched, and all of a sudden we looked up and we're like, oh my gosh, this dude's gonna go for 40. And I don't think he quite got there, but they couldn't guard him. They could not stop him. He got whatever he wanted. And again, it comes down to the role. Are you going to do you have to be the dude to be able to score with this type of efficiency and provide this value? Or can you do it in a scaled down role where you're coming off a bench for the Clippers and you're playing in that second unit and you can knock down shots when you're only playing 15 minutes a game and you're not going to get what he shoot, 14 attempts in a game. Like that's what it'll come down to for him is, can he scale that down, but keep the efficiency, the rebounding, and all of those other things.
Another guy, Kobe Brown, ended up averaging 16.6 points, 5.2 rebounds, 4.2 assists versus only 2.4 turnovers. The issue is that, Kobe is starting to look like a single season shooter for his senior year at Missouri. And the shooting is just like such a integral part of his translation. Only made 23% from three at Summer League. I didn't think the shot looked all that clean either, in all honesty. To me, he really has to be a high-end shooter, not even like a high-end shooter, but like a 35 to 37% three-point shooter to be able to make it. And I just don't know that I totally see that yet from him.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Also, just like, I know this isn't the point of this, but Trenton Flowers on a two-way with the Clippers. I think this just happened in the last day or two. So a guy that we've talked about a few times. So, but yeah,
let's go nuts.
No, I don't want to talk about it. I would just wanted to mention it. Who was anybody else here? Josh Bannon. That was a guy we talked about whenever we watched a Clippers game. I think we watched a Clippers game. Yeah, the same.
We did.
I'm an idiot. I just said this.
Shout out Josh Bannon, Australian icon, Josh Bannon. Josh Bannon was another one of those guys that like I saw like in the stands or like in the concourse, like, talking to people, like taking photos and stuff. So that was fun. Moussa Diabate, super active and aggressive, always what he is, just doesn't have a ton of skill, unfortunately, which is the worry. I think we can stop with the Clippers and go to the Golden State Warriors. What were your thoughts on Pods? Because Brandon Pajemski, came off of playing with the select team and Cooper Flag to deciding to play a couple of Summer League games. Everyone that I talked to was like, why is he playing Summer League? And I was like, you want to tell that dude not to play Summer League? He is a competitor, man. He is somebody that's going to try and get after it.
Yeah, no, I thought he was good. He looked like he was better than everybody else there, like he should. I found myself interested because I've talked about I think Golden State has to find guys that can take some of this usage off of Steph Curry during the regular season. I thought Pods was playing in a role where it was like, hey, I'm going to come down. I'm going to play with the ball in hand the whole time. I'm going to take a ridiculous shot. Like, I'm going to just be super aggressive. I don't know that it translates to the NBA game, but he was very efficient with it in these two Summer League games. And so if he has that in his game where it's not just off ball cutting, the rebounding, all of those things, that would be a ton of value. Like that would be a ceiling for Pods that goes beyond kind of what I thought. And I think it would be huge for them, even if it's just a few minutes a game when Steph is off the floor. But I mean, he averaged almost 10 rebounds a game and 6.5 assists. Like this dude, he's really good. And I mean, that rebounding has translated really well from college. I was kind of interested in the role they had him playing in.
Yeah, so Pods averaged 19 points, shot 50, 50, 86, 9.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. Like, just was ridiculous. Like, Brandon Pajemski should not have been playing Summer League, much like Jaime Jaquez should not have been playing Summer League. Just two dudes that were, ready to go from the jump, all rookie guys, played exceptionally well. Yeah, like I don't know that I need to, Pods was one of the best players in Summer League. Yep. Just point blank. And you mentioned him playing a little bit more on the ball. I'm sure that that's like the case that they made, right? Yeah. Was, hey, sure, we're going to get you some on ball reps. We're going to try and let you kind of rock a little bit. So yeah, it's not a surprise.
Yep.
Daquan Plowden is a guy that popped for me. What did you think of Daquan Plowden, who is now on a two-way with the Golden State Warriors?
I was gonna say, obviously he popped for the Golden State Warriors as well, right? Because he seemingly earned himself a two-way from playing there. Aggressive offensively, averaged 13.4 points a game. This is probably just from Vegas. Let me get to the full thing. Yeah, because this is going to be different now. 14.6 points, 4.5 rebounds, not much with assists, steals, blocks, anything like that. But the number, like I feel like we're beating a dead horse on this episode, Sam, 40% from three on 6 attempts a game. And so whenever you have a little bit of size, 6'6", 6'7", you knock down threes like that people take notice of those type of things. And, good for him for taking advantage of his opportunity.
Just was like really physical and
Yeah.
athletic and, can defend. We know that. Like, he looks the part of an NBA player when I watch him. And if the shot is going to be there, I don't know, man. Like, I think there's just a lot to be intrigued by, at least as like a Juan Toscano Anderson-y kind of, guy that maybe can play a couple of years as a rotation player. But again, like, this team has 45 guys, it feels like, that are going to be able to play minutes. Yeah. Pat Spencer also really popped for me. I thought Pat Spencer was awesome at Summer League, and the things that he did, I think, were actually like really important in terms of him being like an NBA player. 15 points, but had 7 assists per game, shot 70% from the field and 50% from three. Only took 2 threes a game, but like just got into the paint whenever he wanted, it felt like to me, and was able to like make passing reads and make plays. Like, he looked the part of like a two-way with some upside, especially given the fact that like didn't play college basketball until his last season, right? Like, I know he's 28 years old and like you would expect him to be much better than everybody here, but I don't know, man. I'm definitely still somewhat intrigued just given the athleticism here.
Nah, he definitely popped when I was watching the early games for sure. I know I give you a lot of, crap about the Cam Spencer, all of that. And I wanted to add in a joke here, but like, I can't even push back. Pat Spencer popped to me as well. Shout out my guy, Kevin Knox, before we move on.
Yeah.
17 and a half points, 8.5 rebounds. Played for the Detroit Pistons. Watch him help. I watched in person him help them win a game in Denver 2 years ago. So, I mean, there's part of me that's like, guys like this, and you could even say with Pat, like, willing to go play in Summer League, like putting their ego aside and just saying like, hey, I'll go do it. This is a former top 10 pick in Kevin Knox that is now 24 years old, who has played 300 NBA games in his career. And he's saying, you know what, if this is what it takes for me to do whatever, prove myself, get on a roster, whatever it is, I'll go do it. So like, I appreciate guys like that. And it's not just Knox. There's other guys I'm sure as well.
Yeah. Trace Jackson Davis is well played, a couple of games. Another guy that like pods, like I feel like I don't need to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah.
Not a great environment for Trace Jackson Davis necessarily to like do what he's super impressive with, which is scoring passing and playmaking and like short rolling and things like that. I will say, like, I mentioned this on the Modest piece in the last episode. He had like the most thunderous like block I saw at Summer League, where Modest tried to put his shoulder into him and he was like, no, I'm not moving. Good luck, man. And Modest still tried to go up and he just swatted that shit into like the 6th row. Trace was just a little too good for Summer League as well.
Yep.
Okay. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Bryce.
All right.
We're going to start.
Go ahead.
With Leonard Miller.
Do your thing.
I'll ask you first. Like, so Leonard Miller averaged 16 points, 8 rebounds, 1.8 assists, shot 51% from the field, 30% from three. What was your thought on Leonard Miller?
No. So in all seriousness, I watched and I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. I kind of like what I'm seeing here. I like the defense. Here's my one question. What is Leonard Miller's role offensively? Like what does he do there? Can he space the floor? Is he going to be a cutter, offensive rebounder? Does he pass it well enough? Whatever. Like, in all honesty, I would be in if I felt good about what the offensive role was on an NBA floor.
I think that right now the role would be pick and pop, pick and short roll, take advantage of his athleticism against other centers where he can like drive and get to the basket or drive to pass and do those things. I don't know that that's enough to be in a rotation right now, point blank. And I think that where I'm at on Leonard at this point is I'm starting to adjust the way that like I think about prospects a little bit in terms of, I think I probably ranked him too highly because he is probably going to be a guy that takes 3 years to enter a rotation. And a lot of the time, those guys that take 3 years end up doing it for a second team.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
So I think Miller is going to be an NBA player. I think he's going to be a really, really good center at some point with some ceiling, like to do some real things. It's just like it's a real project. You know what I mean? And Minnesota has all these bigs, and maybe one of them gets hurt and he can step in. I did like him more than I like Josh Minot, for what it's worth. Like Josh, I still don't totally know what the role is as well. But with Leonard, he's like bigger and has bigger shoulders and like is a little bit more physical. And I feel like he rebounds a little bit more effectively. Like I can envision the role and like the feel and the natural like Hooper gene a little bit better with him than I can with like Minot, for instance. But like the role is going to have to be plays the big position, takes bigs away from the basket, and like, you know, makes plays like that kind of deal, which is, you know, not, it's a good, they're in an interesting position to have him because they have Naz Reid and they clearly value this skill set, which says to me that they will probably pretty clearly value Leonard Miller moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, he like crushed the offensive boards in his 5 games. So like that obviously stands out with what he was able to do there. 51
He just plays super hard.
Super
like
hard.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
He had some of the most interesting college film I've ever watched.
We didn't get to talk a lot about Leonard
when he was up in Canada.
Spins was still
wow. Yeah.
Spins was still on the show at that point, but yeah, interesting player more than like a rotation player right now, but a guy that I am still like really, really interested in and would probably still take in the top 20, top 25 of that class. In all honesty, like I feel like he's going to play in the NBA for a while. Okay. Minot, we mentioned briefly, you know, 3rd summer league for Minot. I thought that he was super athletic and aggressive. And, you know, I think that, you know, he continues to just really pop athletically and not really in any other respect for me, unfortunately.
Same.
Yeah. Like 23% from 3, negative assist turnover ratio. This is, you know, the reason that I had Minot ranked as a 2nd rounder was because I thought that at the end of the day, his feel just wasn't quite there and the skill set wasn't quite there. With Leonard, like you can see the feel and the skills and the passing and like things like that and the handle. With Minot, it's like just all athlete, kind of. And I don't know, those aren't my kind of players really for the most part.
I'm with you.
Station Knicks, Nadir Heafy, any?
So I'm the games I watched, I must have missed Nadir Heafy because he only played 3. So the ones I had to go back and download some Wolves games to catch up on it a little bit. So yep. I want to hear your thoughts because I know you tweeted about him and like I must have missed it. So
I just love how funny he is more than anything. I don't think he's an NBA player in all honesty. I think he's probably like a exceptionally high-end EuroLeague player who will play on the French national team for a decade probably.
Okay.
But he's just very small, like is the thing. Honestly, like he is so skilled with the ball that I can see a world. So Nadir Heafy this year played 72 games with Paris, averaged 15.8 points, shot 45, 37, 85 from the field. He is like a scorer more than a passer distributor though. And he is like a lightning quick dude with the ball, can play out of ball screens at a super high level, can get to step backs, like just an exceptionally creative guard. And he might end up being so good given the fact that I think he's still only 21. No, he just turned 22 a week ago. Yeah, like he's just so creative with the ball that like he might end up being an NBA player at some point. But you know, the more likely outcome is like literally the best guard in Europe, probably at some point.
He almost averaged a point a minute and didn't even shoot good from 3. I mean, he shot 14% from 3, but still averaged 11.3 points in 13.6 minutes. So
yeah, no, he can score.
Yeah,
like, he can really go with the ball in his hands. And like for people who don't know, like Paris this year was one of the best teams, you know, in France. Thomas Isalo, who is their coach, he is now the lead assistant for the Memphis Grizzlies. They run like a super fun style and everything. And Heafy will be back with Paris this year. They made EuroLeague for the first time in their team's history, and it was like him and TJ Shorts that kind of led them there. So I think he can like really, really play. It's just, is the size going to be too big of an issue because he's 6'1" and doesn't have length, and it's a real concern.
Sure.
Okay. Dacian Nix didn't really pop for me again, in all honesty. Guy that I think some Wolves fans were somewhat interested in, didn't really look great. To me, Cam Whitmore and the Houston Rockets. Any Cam Whitmore thoughts?
I am in on Cam Whitmore still. Yeah, that's it. I think
that's it.
I mean, I guess, the thing that stands out, right, is the 4.3 assists, right? I mean, that's a huge thing for Cam Whitmore, coming out of college. It was a huge critique from people, was the assist numbers, and probably rightfully so, but he didn't shoot it particularly well at Summer League percentage wise. I don't really care. I feel like Cam Whitmore can score the basketball.
So let's give a little bit of context on why he didn't shoot it.
One game. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. One game.
So yeah, went 8 for 17 the first game, went 9 for 15 the second game, and then went 1 for 15 in the third game, which was the third game in 4 nights.
Yep.
Which I think was the first game of the day potentially, in Vegas in Thomas and Mack. Forgive me for maybe giving him some leeway on this one
against those pesky Pistons too, Sam. Those defensive minded Pistons locked him up.
Yeah,
I'm joking. Someone's gonna crush me on Twitter for that. So yeah, a one-off crushed his percentages. Like that's a great point. He still was 1 for 9 from 3 in the games before, but he was good inside the 3-point line.
Yeah.
In the first 2 games, got to the free throw line 15 times in those first 2 games, rebounded the ball really well in those first 2 games. But the assists, he had 4 or more in every single one. I guess if there's something you want to take away Cam Whitmore wise, it's like, hey, he distributed the basketball a little bit.
Yeah, to me, there was just no reason for him to play that third game. And I was just like, all right, this is insane that he's out here right now. And yeah, he doesn't look great, but it's like an afternoon game in Vegas, 3rd and 4 nights. Like, what are we doing here?
Yep.
AJ Griffin, on the other hand, was almost the guy that I would venture beyond Reed that Rockets fans were most interested in seeing because they traded number 44 for him. I don't know what to make of what I saw from AJ. I kind of hated his first 2 games, to be honest with you. I thought that they tried to let him, it felt like they tried to let him play on the ball a little bit and gave him some on-ball reps. And I was like, that's not what I want from AJ Griffin. And I felt like then he kind of, especially that second game, he took 17 shots and was trying to pull up all over the place and did not look very good. I thought he looked way better in that game against the Pistons.
Yeah,
I thought he actually.
That's the game I watched. I thought he looked good in that one.
Yeah, I thought he looked quite good actually in the Timberwolves game as well. It was just a very, it started really poorly and then kind of rose and got way better. I thought he just continued to show growth in a way that you would hope that, somebody like him in his second stop still has some upside. I think he probably just needs to be a 40+% 3-point shooter at the end of the day, which I think that you and I believe in all likelihood that will happen. 38% from 3 this past year.
Yeah.
I liked enough of what I saw.
Yeah, no, like I said, I don't watch all 5 games. So the game I saw was, the game against the Pistons. I thought he played quite well. And I think he's a guy, I just feel like I know his role. He's going to be an off the ball floor spacer, do that. And then, be able to guard, neutrally on the other end of the floor and be that type of archetype. But you're right. He's got to be a 40% 3-point shooter to make up for his lack of ability in some of the other aspects of the game.
So Orlando Robinson ended up signing with the Kings.
Yep.
I am not an enormous Orlando Robinson guy. I'm intrigued to see what it looks like in Sacramento. I don't think though that he is somebody that I would have been necessarily rushing to sign. I'll ask you before I kind of explain why. Did you like what you saw from Orlando Robinson?
I mean, he stood out to me just with the rebounding and the activity. 5 offensive rebounds per game is obviously going to pop off whenever you're watching. And so like that, just kind of the energy he played with, he stepped out and, he took 6 threes, made 3 of them. I don't know if that's a substantial enough. Again, the context in the Pistons game, he went 2 of 3. So it probably kind of popped off a little bit more to me whenever I was watching that one. Doesn't really protect the rim or offer a ton of, or didn't anyway, like defensive playmaking. And I assume this is where you're going to go, where if you're the Kings, isn't that kind of what you're looking for? Is if you're bringing in a big, it's somebody that can do a little bit of that.
So I thought he was like one of the most impressive bigs at Summer League, but when I watch his game, it just strikes me as the kind of game that translates at a really high level in the G League and in Summer League, but doesn't quite work as well like when he has to go against like NBA caliber talent, because a lot of it's like floaters around the basket and like little touch shots around the basket because he's not a super like explosive, bouncy athlete, right? And then like as a rim protector, he's not really that. And like, he's not like a super high level passer. He just rebounds the ball really well and is super long and can occasionally step out and shoot. That's really what it's going to have to be, is he's going to have to shoot the ball like at a high level, I think, to be an NBA player, because the rest of it, I worry if it kind of comes together in the way that I would like. But it was productive, obviously, like you said, 14 points, 9 rebounds per game, 59% from the field, made some threes. The shooting is the key for me, though. He has to shoot it.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, in the G League this past season, he was disruptive with some steals and blocks. And so maybe it just wasn't something he emphasized or Houston wanted to see in Summer League. But, that would be a little bit more defensive playmaking and disruption. But yeah, the shooting, like, can he space the floor and provide value that way, along with the offensive rebounding and kind of the energy he can play with?
I think that's right. Nate Williams. I like Nate Williams still. Interesting player to me.
Yep.
Just 3-and-D potential, plays super hard, super aggressive, active, has to shoot it at like a 38% clip because he's 6'5", but a guy that I'm certainly watching moving forward. Denver Nuggets. Julian Strawther led Summer League in scoring, 28.5 points per game. What did you think of Julian Strawther's overall play?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was there to get buckets. I think you could tell he was like, "Hey, I'm going to come here and I'm going to score the basketball." And I don't blame him. I mean, I think there is a role in Denver. And if I'm here's my thing. If I'm Julian Strawther, I look at the Nuggets roster right now. And obviously Russ wasn't on the roster at the time, but the rumors were all out there. I would go, if I can show that I can space the floor and knock down shots and really score the basketball, this team is going to have to play me. And so I would go into Summer League with that thought in mind of, can I knock down shots and really score the basketball? And at the end of the day, he did it. It was only 2 games, but shot 41% from 3 on 11 attempts and averaged almost 30 a game. So I don't blame him for that mindset. And I feel like he probably went in and executed it the way he envisioned.
They need shooters. Like that, this roster, losing KCP is almost like more importantly than the defense. You lose a super high level shooter as well. Like Christian Brown is a guy that we think probably will shoot at some point, but not a consistent shooter quite yet. Russell Westbrook is the guard you're bringing in. Like we know there's, reportedly the guard that they're bringing in. Not a shooter, obviously. They need guys who can come in and just catch fire.
Peyton Watson has to play. Like he's going to play at least in the regular season. Right now you need him to play. I mean, I went through it. I mean, when you think about Gordon, Brown, these guys are even if they shoot good percentages, they're not volume shooters, right? They're not dudes that are like just a ton of gravity. And Peyton Watson and Russ, that's 4 of your top 8 players, probably.
Yeah.
4 of your top 8 are in that realm of like not really great floor spacers or don't have that type of gravity that you would want. That's like, I think Dario Saric makes sense because of that, because, as a big, he could space the floor. Obviously I was high on Deron Holmes potentially doing that. and why I think Julian Strawther has a chance to go play for this team. I think right now he has to play. I don't see how they get around him not being the backup guard that plays with Russ in the second unit.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is a team that like should have signed. I know Buddy Hield got more than like what was expected, but I would have tried to get Buddy Hield if I was them and say like, we'll give you the Dario Saric deal and give you the 1+1. This is the absolute best situation for you to rehabilitate your stock after a bad year or a bad close to the year in Philly. Just come and knock down shots for us, right?
Well, and I guess I was a little surprised, like even Gary Trent Jr. and maybe he just wanted to go to the Bucks because
just wanted to go to Milwaukee.
Start. Yeah. I assume he starts in Milwaukee, and he wouldn't in. I mean, I'm assuming he wouldn't in Denver. Like they seem pretty locked in on starting Christian Brown. Would he start over Christian Brown if they would have got him? I don't know. And maybe this is Calvin Booth just saying like, hey, I drafted Christian Brown, I drafted Peyton Watson, I drafted Julian Strawther. These guys are ready to play. We're going to play him.
Undeniably, I think that's where Calvin Booth is going. Like he's saying, like, we believe in these young dudes and we're going. Now, the other two vets that they drafted last year, and these guys are older, Hunter Tyson and Jalen Pickett. I thought Pickett was the worst player I saw at Summer League that played 25 minutes a night or more. He was really bad. Like was completely invisible, couldn't get anywhere. Yeah, I thought he was really bad.
Yeah, the numbers kind of back it up too. Like I don't even want to continue, but yeah, I wasn't a huge Jalen Pickett guy going into that draft anyway.
Yeah. I think it was like 3.5 points, 2.5 assists in 25 minutes per game for a draft pick. That's like reddest of red flags at Summer League that I can remember. And then Tyson like just didn't shoot super well and didn't look the part athletically, in all honesty, either.
Yeah. I thought like when we talked about Nick Smith Jr., I felt a little bit the same about Hunter Tyson, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. Those two don't look like they're going to be hits, in my opinion, in Denver. But second round flyers. You know what? Like Pickett, they used number 32 on him. That's not a flyer. That's like a really valuable pick. Like literally the year before, Andrew Nembhard, I think, went 31. You can find guys at 32. Tyson's like a little bit more of a, they acquired that pick, and I think it was 40 or whatever, and goes down pretty drastically there. But Tyler Kolek looked great at Summer League. He went 34 this year. You can find those veteran point guards, but I don't think Jalen Pickett was it, unfortunately. Okay. New Orleans Pelicans, Jordan Hawkins played like a lot of point guard early on for them. That did not go well. And I never want to see it again.
So this is one where I disagree with the idea behind it. Like if New Orleans goes in and says, hey, we're going to play you at point guard. Like, okay, fine. I know I said earlier that just as long as you had a plan, I don't mean to be like a jerk here. I think that's a really bad plan. Jordan Hawkins has one elite skill, and it's something I love. Like Jordan Hawkins was my guy in that draft, and it ain't playing with the ball in his hand. It is running off screens and using those in a way that very few other players can do it, and having the nuance of it and the conditioning to do it and reading the screens and the skill level to shoot off the movement. That is what Jordan Hawkins does. He's never going to play with the ball in his hands, Sam. Like, I don't even know that he's physically like strong enough to necessarily do that. So I didn't like that in general, them asking him to do it. Maybe, and maybe this is contrary to what I said earlier. Maybe there's some effect of that he'll learn from it that'll help him grow. And maybe I'm not seeing it. I didn't love that.
I think that's what they're hoping, is that like, maybe he sees the court a little bit differently by having gone through this experience. But I mean, he shot 29% from the field and 24% from three. He just looked uncomfortable doing all of this.
And you know what? Like, I can't sit here and you like say to my high school kids and middle school kids, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and completely shit on this idea. If the Pelicans saw some value in making Jordan Hawkins uncomfortable, or like you said, some tertiary aspect of seeing the floor, playing from this position or whatever, then maybe there's a bigger vision here that I should be a little bit more open-minded to. I would have rather them say, you know what? We know what you do offensively. Jordan, go defend. Like, we want to see you guard the other team's best perimeter player, and you're going to sit that. Like, that would have been what I would have been interested to see, as opposed to putting all this on-ball usage on his shoulders.
Yeah, no, I agree. Carlo Matkovic,
Yeah.
on the other hand, I thought looked quite good.
He popped one
I
of
thought,
the games I watched. Yeah.
yeah, it was the San Antonio game, if I
Yes.
remember correctly. He
Yep.
played quite well.
Yes.
Because I made you watch for Riley Minix, if I
You
remember
did.
correctly.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah, I thought Matkovic played super well in the game that I saw, at least. Like, looked like a real player for them. Potentially is like a third big this year. Won't play a crazy amount, but looked like they signed him to a roster spot, and I was kind of questioning it. But by the end of that game, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I kind of see the vision, at least here a little bit. Third summer league, averaged 11 points and 4 rebounds and 2 assists and 1.7 blocks, and was able to like just kind of be active and athletic and aggressive in the way that they hoped whenever they drafted him. Not like some unbelievable player or anything, but looks like a potential third big.
Yeah, and right now he is the third big on that team. He may be the second big, because I don't know if Yves Missi is like ready to play those minutes right now. So if New Orleans doesn't do something else, there's a chance that he could play himself into some rotation minutes.
Yeah, I think that's right. Last guy here, Jordan Ford. Jordan Ford just pops every time I watch Jordan Ford. He is, super small. He's super, super small. And I don't know if he's going to end up being, anything resembling an NBA player. But, he averaged 16.3 points per game over the course of 2 different summer league stops, because he played for that Sacramento, California Classic team as well. Shot 57% from the field, 45% from 3, 92% from the line, 3.4 assists. Just a super creative player, super fast, really skilled, can shoot the ball, shoots the hell out of the ball, really. Look, like maybe he's just like a great guard over in Europe, but he is definitely something to me.
I think what this summer league kind of should remind everybody is how many talented small guards there are out there in the world. Like, just how good. Think about how many 6'1", 6'2" guards we've talked about just in this episode that were like, they were awesome. They were super creative. They made shots. They did this, but I don't know if they're actually going to make it in the league or not. Like, I think it shows how hard it is for guys at that size to make it in the league, and how many super talented versions of those type of players there are around the world.
Yep. Okay. Let's go to the Cavs next. We got Imani Bates, Craig Porter Jr., Pete Nance, and Luke Travers. That's a fun 4-person group. Anybody, that particularly popped there for you?
No, Bates is another one of those. It's like, okay, what do you want the role to be? What do you want to see, right? Like, we watched him do this at Eastern Michigan, where he's like just taking whatever shot he wants and doing all of that stuff. Are you better off saying, almost the Gigi Jackson thing of like, go stand in the corner and just take these shots? Like, imagine you're playing with Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen and Darius Garland, and these are where your shots are going to come from. Or is it, hey, do this, and this is what you're going to do off the bench? I will say, one of the games I watched extremely close, he threw a few passes that were kind of impressive that I'm like, I'm not sure Imani would have thrown that pass, a couple of years ago in college or even last year. So I wanted to give him a little bit of love for that, but it's really going to come down to just that role, that what is he able to knock down shots in this off-ball role? I thought the 2 most impressive shots he made were off-ball relocations, where he understood spacing, caught, and then was able to knock those down.
Yeah, like I just need to see more on defense. It's a similar conversation to Gigi Jackson, like, except he's not as good as Gigi Jackson. Like,
yeah.
Has to shoot it at a 38 to 40% clip to me. Last summer league, he did that and, looked really valuable. this time he shot 29% from three and shot 36% from the field, right? So just the margin for error with Imani is very small. He did play pretty well in the G League this year for a teenager or a 20-year-old, 21 points, 42% from the field because he still can't really elevate and finish, but, made 37% of his 10.5 threes per game, rebounded reasonably well. For a guy that is as young as he is, it was good to see some signs there, but I did not love his summer league performance. Craig Porter Jr. felt like to me, just another one of those guys that I don't want to say like too good for summer league necessarily, because I think that'd be unfair to say, but like the defense was really good and he passed and, got everybody in flow and everything. Like that was really valuable to see. It really does just come down to the shot with him for me. Like he has to shoot it at a pretty real clip, maybe a good third guard right now in the NBA, I think.
Yep, I agree. Pete Nance has to be able to space the floor as a big.
Yep. And then Luke Travers is a guy that, there's buzz that he might end up getting a two-way from the Lakers. What did you think of Luke?
Yeah, I thought he was okay. Interesting player. I thought he attacked the basket. Obviously a guy that has played over there for what started off with Perth and then
plays for Melbourne United now. Yeah, was really, really valuable for them this year.
Scores
Starter.
the ball scores the ball efficiently overall. Another guy that, what is the shooting, but rebounds a little bit, passes a little bit, does a lot of things. I feel like, it's like, what's the elite? What's if I said like, what gets Luke Travers on the floor in an NBA game? What's the answer, I guess, is.
So it's like active energy, rebounding, defense, like switchable, kind of all that stuff. Gets out in transition, can pass it a little bit, just like kind of a chess piece, Swiss Army knife kind of player. But you have to shoot to be able to make that role work in the NBA, and he doesn't really shoot it well enough yet. Let's move to the Portland Trailblazers. I loved what I saw from Bryce McGowan's. I continue to love what I see from Bryce McGowan's every time I watch him.
Yeah, scored the basketball almost 16 points a game. Was it just Vegas? No, he had games before that. So 17 points a game. Wasn't even like crazy efficient. Got to the free throw line though. Just be like, can he translate it into a role? Is he going to get a chance to play those minutes in Portland in a pretty, I mean, we're already having questions about the backcourt, with young players.
Yeah.
Where do the minutes come from him? Or is it just G League for him? He get a two-way with Portland. Is that right?
He did. Yeah. To me, like Bryce is a guy that I've always thought will be an NBA player when he's like 24 or 25, but is 21 or 22 right now. Right. Needs to get way stronger to be able to like impact the game across multiple parts of the court and like across like his floor game, right? Like needs to rebound it, needs to pass it a little bit better, but has real scoring instincts. I think he's active. He's athletic. He looks the part on the court. 6'6", 6'7", something like that. Can score the basketball. Can shoot it a little bit. So yeah, no, I think that he looked pretty solid comparatively to what I'd hoped. And then like they had Kennedy Chandler. I mean, Chris Murray is a first round pick. Like, did you see much from Chris Murray that popped?
No, and my thing with Chris is like, I don't know that I focused a whole lot on him because I had, NBA film to watch with him. I will say like Ryan Repair was a guy I was interested in a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't think he looked awesome. I was a little concerned with what I saw from him.
Yeah. Repair's a fun one, just close the loop on Chris Murray, right?
Yeah.
Chris Murray at Summer League averaged 10 points, shot 26% from three, 7 rebounds, 2.6 assists, does everything that you want somebody like Chris Murray to do with that frame in terms of, rebounding and playing defense and passing the ball well, playing within structure, like everything like that. It's really going to come down to the shot. To me, the shot does not look pretty. And he has to shoot it, like really, really has to shoot it. That was always the big difference between him and Keegan, and it's been exaggerated. The other guy you mentioned, Ryan Repair, it just continues to like look like he grows every time I watch him. Like I think he's like now like 6'9". It feels like. I don't know what the Blazers listed him at this year, but just looks big when I see him. offense is just such an adventure for him right now. There's just there's nothing he can stick on an NBA court with offensively, unfortunately, at this point. I mean, we'll see where that grows. He's going to have to shoot it. The thing I will say with Repair, like, unbelievable worker.
Sure.
Literally everybody across every stop of his career will tell you, like, he just works relentlessly, tirelessly. So hopefully that'll work out. Brooklyn Nets. Jalen Wilson was your summer league MVP for reasons kind of beyond my comprehension, but I liked what I saw from Jalen. Like, I thought Jalen looked really good.
No, I was impressed. I mean, I wasn't always the biggest Jalen Wilson guy, even, someone that lives in Kansas watch, the Jayhawks, but I thought the jumper looked really confident, really smooth.
Yep.
I thought he got it off quickly. Obviously he made them, which is a huge part of this. I did find myself kind of like, I just kind of watch him like, I'm kind of buying this. I'm kind of buying the scoring right now. And it made me look at that roster and kind of what they're trying to do this year. And it's like, is he going to get some minutes on the wing, especially if there's some more trades coming eventually for, obviously I would think DFS and then potentially even Cam Johnson. Does Jalen Wilson get a chance to go and play on obviously a really bad team, but I thought he looked good. I mean, and then I thought it looked very smooth and I kind of just bought it. And whenever I was watching him knock down shots.
Yeah, I bought it too. Part of why I ended up with him as a top 40 guy in that class was like, I just bought him as a shooter in a way that I think other people didn't. Look, he made a bunch of shots here, but we'll see if it sticks. But I think he will shoot it long term. And he's a great rebounder, just active, switchable on defense. Like there are a lot of things that he can kind of bring to the table that I like athletically. Noah Clowney, any thoughts?
No, I mean, he's an archetype that's interesting as a big that, spaces the floor. He shot, almost 6 a game, 39%. So that's intriguing. Would have liked to see the rebounding be a little bit better, but there were flashes where I'm like, I don't know, like not really loving this. And all of a sudden he'd bang a shot and maybe, protect the rim. It's like, okay, I'm buying back in a little bit. So it was kind of a roller coaster for me with Noah.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty active in the games I watched where, averaged 14 points, 4.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists, but then had 1.4 steals and 1.6 blocks. Like he just felt long and active and, aggressive defensively on the court when I saw him play, which was really good to see. Like you said, he made 50% of his threes, which was valuable to see. Needs to continue to get stronger, right? He's a project. Like we knew he was a project entering the NBA. Guy that seems to be working out though, I would say, in the way that you could have potentially hoped for. If you're Brooklyn, knowing that this was going to be a longer term pathway for him.
Yep.
The guy that I'm worried about is Dariq Whitehead.
Yeah, that was bad.
I am exceptionally worried about Dariq Whitehead right now because like, I don't know if maybe the injuries just like completely sapped anything that he kind of had maybe, or if he's just like getting back and getting comfortable or whatever, but like he just, I mean, look, like part of this is he just shot really poorly too, but like he didn't look like he was like getting separation or, getting any sort of lift or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's worrisome. Yeah, it wasn't good. So hopefully he's able to figure it out, but I'm with you that it wasn't great.
I hope that, I hope it's still, he's just trying to come back from injury.
Yeah, sure.
More than anything. Like that's really what I'm hoping for. Utah Jazz, the only guy I brought up here was Taylor Hendricks. I saw Taylor Hendricks play his best game of summer league, is one of the last games I saw in Vegas. So I think I'm a little bit clouded by this. I also don't think Taylor Hendricks is like a summer league guy. He's not a shot creator. He's not a guy who's going to go and get his, right. And then on top of it, the Jazz guard play was just like, we talked about Isaiah Collier. Like he was horrific, I thought, at summer league. So I think that there might be some overreactions happening a little bit with Hendricks right now. When he was like cutting and getting to the basket, I thought he was pretty okay, but there were times where he looked invisible in a way that you hope that you don't see from a top 10 pick. So I understand it if there are some Jazz fans that are worried, but this is just like not his environment to me at the end of the day.
Yeah, and my thing with Taylor Hendricks is I think we're gonna get a pretty good feel for him I think anyway, this upcoming season with where the Jazz are at with their roster and all of that. So I think we're gonna get some quality evaluation um, from him during the regular season. So that's what I don't want to overthink what we saw here in summer league.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just not overly concerned by what I saw there. Like you'd like to see him, develop some of those ball
Sure.
skills, maybe, right?
I've
But
never
I don't
thought that
even
was
think
part of his game though.
neither have I, and I didn't really even think they gave him a chance to do that. Like they had a bunch of guards on the team as well. Like they were trying to give Tavion Kinsey. The Jazz Summer League team was probably the one that like disappointed me most. The other guy we should talk about is Keontae George, I guess, as well, because he played in the Utah Summer League. The second game was good. So when I say this, I want to be clear about that. The second game was good. I thought Keontae George played one of the grossest games of basketball in his first game at Summer League that I've ever seen in my life. Did you watch that game at all?
Yeah, like I mean, it was 5 for 21. Yeah, I mean, he got to the free throw line.
Yeah, he got there 19 times. Like he was just like driving and like I get that like it was good, but like think about how many he took like 30 shots to get to 30 or 30 like shooting possessions to get to 30 points in a summer league game where like I guess we know that we know he's a scorer. Like he didn't show anything. He turned it over 5 times. Like it was that first game was rough. The second game was great. Like to be clear, like he had 31 points on 15 shots, got to the line again, had 5 assists. Like he was much, much better in the second game. And I don't want to overreact to it, but like, man, that first game was one of the ugliest things I've seen in a while.
I've been a little bit more on pause with Keontae George because it comes back to the efficiency. Like it wasn't great at Baylor, wasn't great in his rookie year. He's young. It was his rookie season. I get it. I just want to see the efficiency before I get super excited about him as this like starting level on ball, creator in the NBA. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure what he'll be long term. Like I think there's a chance that he's a real on ball like creator. I think there's a chance he's a sixth man.
Yeah.
Like it's it could go either direction still, and it's going to be dependent upon him making the growth and being able to, change his overall floor game beyond just being a scorer, and needs to become more efficient inside the 3-point arc as well.
Yep.
Toronto Raptors, like Grady Dick, worth mentioning at all?
I mean,
like
he didn't shoot the ball.
Another like non summer league guy to me.
Yeah. I thought he moved really well. Like I'm watching the game, like, man, he looks good coming off the screens, looks, a little more flexible and all of that. But, he goes 0 for 9 from 3. So like the numbers aren't going to look great. If Grady Dick doesn't make shots, Grady Dick's not going to be a rotation NBA player. I think we know that, but I think we also believe he's a better shooter than 0%. So
we do. We do believe Grady Dick is going to be able to shoot at some point. That is an accurate sentiment. I'll shout out DJ Carton again. Like I think DJ Carton looks like a potential third guard in the NBA whenever I watch him. Still only 23 years old, averaged 10 points, but shot 51% from the field, 39 or 36% from 3, 60% from the line. 3 assists versus only 1.6 turnovers. Like continues to be useful whenever I see him out there. Like keeps the offense in flow, does a pretty good job, and he's just like a super athlete still, obviously. So
no, I like it.
Let's see here. Milwaukee Bucks, they were the most disappointing team maybe at Summer League to me. Marjon Beauchamp looked pretty ugly in terms of his game.
That was going to be my biggest thing here with these guys was I didn't think he looked good at all, Sam. Like I was like,
yeah.
And there was even some flashes that he had one really good quarter. I think one of the games I watched where he scored the ball, but overall I came away not impressed.
I was not super impressed either. It felt like he was like kind of pressing it a little bit. Rebounded well, like he passed it well, but like it just felt like he was trying to do things on the ball, like aggressively and didn't love the feel. He plays super hard, like I'll give him that, but I didn't love the feel. I didn't love the way that, he made decisions on the court. Yeah, just wasn't awesome setting for him. It
Yep.
felt like.
I thought Livingston
One
was
guy
fine. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, like, I will give Chris Livingston though some props.
Yeah,
I thought
sure.
Chris Livingston was quite good.
Yeah. No, he shot the ball well, made shots, NBA body. I thought he was fine. He was better. He was good. I think good's is the word I would use as well.
If there's one thing that I will take away from Summer League for the Milwaukee Bucks positively, I would say it was Chris Livingston. Like, I'd have never really thought Chris Livingston was an NBA player. Even going back to like his senior year of high school, I didn't really think it. I thought he was just like an early developer, but he looks quite good now. Like his physically, like he looks like he's in better shape. Knocked down shots, was consistent, like cutting back door in a way that a lot of their guys weren't. I thought he was pretty good. I thought he was like quite good, and I would be excited for him if I was a Milwaukee Bucks fan right now. I mean, look, like they didn't have like any pass first point guards, so like it's kind of hard. Like when you have all of Ryan Rollins, Ty Washington, and Hugo Bassan running the show, it might not look all that pretty. So those guys are out there trying to score. Hugo was wild. Hugo was like just out there trying to get buckets. It felt like every single time he touched the ball. And I don't know that it was all that successful or impactful. Andre Jackson, this is just like the anti-Summer League guy to me. So I'm like not worried about Andre here.
Yep, I'm with you there.
Okay. I mean, Atlanta Hawks, Boston Celtics,
Sixers.
Philadelphia 76ers. Anybody pop there?
I mean, Keita, like we know that he's going to go in there and rebound, score the basketball around the rim. I thought Jaden Springer, he plays so physical. That always stands out to me whenever I watch him. Honestly, when I'm watching the Hawks, like I'm so locked in on Reese Shea that I don't know that I catch a whole lot of anybody else, if I'm being honest. No overwhelming thoughts with those ones. If we have time, I would love to do a little bit of Marcus Sasser just as a homer conversation.
Yeah.
I would like to get. I didn't think I've said on my own podcast, whatever, like I didn't think Sasser had a great summer league. I didn't think it was super impressive. I see Sasser more of like an off the ball floor spacer, even though he's smaller, like playing off a jumbo guy like Cade. That's why I liked him going to Detroit. I thought in summer league, he tried to play more on the ball. And I just don't think that's what he can play on the ball and create his own shot. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he does a great job creating shots for others. So I was kind of just curious what you thought about Sasser in summer league.
Yeah. I felt like they tried to make him a point guard when I watched them play, and that's not his game.
Yeah.
He needs to have like freedom. He didn't look comfortable, like not, being told like, hey, like go be like I'm guessing, I'm not sitting here saying like I know what was happening. I'm just saying like it seemed like he was told, go be a point guard, go distribute, go do this, that, and the other thing. And he's a scorer, man. Like he needs freedom to just like go and create shots. That's who he is. And I don't know. We didn't really get a chance to see that. Keaton Wallace really popped for me for Atlanta. I think like he signed a 2-way with them, midway through the event, and he looks like a real, like interesting potential, maybe fourth guard for somebody down the road. Just plays really hard on defense and can shoot. Like Casey Wallace's brother, brings everything Casey does, just like not quite as shifty or, talented with the ball in his hands, but really good player that I think has a shot. You mentioned Nimi Keita. I'm kind of assuming that Nimi Keita like plays minutes for them early in the season, especially in Boston, because Kristaps is going to miss some time. Al Horford, you don't want to have him, eat up a lot of minutes early in the season. I'm guessing that like Nemi Keita ends up playing, 15, 20 minutes a game early in the season. Looked good. I thought at summer league, was an active rim runner, was aggressive, defended well around the basket. I mean, Ricky Council the fourth for the 76ers, did his thing where he tried to get buckets and Sometimes it was successful, sometimes it wasn't. It felt like to me. Mo Gay with Atlanta looked really good against the Spurs, and then I believe he might have like turned an ankle or something like that. Think that might have occurred. Think he might have turned an ankle, right?
Sorry, I was looking through a list. Who are we talking about?
Mo Gay
Moge.
for Atlanta.
Sorry, I was looking
Think
through
he
summer league.
think he like turned an ankle in his second game. Looked super athletic, looked active. They had him like playing as like that perimeter big kind of guy, and looked okay. So for the Bulls, DJ Stewart, I believe, signed a two-way deal. Go ahead.
No, that's just, there was two names I was going to bring up. That's why I was distracted there. It was Adam Flagler, and then I thought DJ Stewart was really good. He continued to pop whenever I would watch him play.
Yeah, I mean, he can really score the basketball and he plays hard. Like that's always been DJ's thing. Like he plays really hard. I thought he was like pretty active on the glass for the most part for somebody that is that small, and then like passed it well. Like that was always the thing that like he never did was pass it. And I felt like he ended up like seeing the court a little bit better and made plays for his teammates in a way that I didn't really have experience seeing with him. So yeah, DJ, I thought he was quite good.
Yeah, no, I thought he played really well. I thought he played with good pace, operated ball screens well. He really stood out to me when I was watching them play the Pistons, and I watched another game. I was like, oh man, like he's playing well in this one also.
Yeah, and you brought up Flag, like Adam Flagler, 21 points, just an awesome shooter and scorer. Like I believe in that part of his game. Awesome, like human being as well. Like I think he was like pre-med at Baylor. I loved seeing him score. I loved seeing him like be able to consistently get some run because he's dealt with a few injuries here early in his career, but he can definitely score the basketball at an NBA level. It's just like, can he do anything else?
So this is from July 19th. Mo was out for that game with a left hip contusion.
Okay. So it wasn't ankle. I remember that like he missed most of summer league, but like had a really good flash like early against the Spurs. I felt like he was really good in that game. Okay. Anything else here? Anybody else that like we feel like someone in the comments asked about Omax and AJ Lawson for Dallas. AJ Lawson to me is just kind of not an NBA player, not an NBA rotation player, at least. Could probably stick around as a back end of the roster guy or a two-way guy, but I think he's probably coming close to running out of years for a two-way, and he still can't shoot is the big issue for him. And then Omax is more important. Omax, again, just another guy that's going to be really hard pressed to be successful at summer league because he doesn't have ball skills.
Yeah.
But, defense and shooting, you're hoping that that's it. I didn't feel like he was super, super impressive when I watched him, but I also felt like I didn't really care. I mean, looking at summer league stats here, averaged 14.6 points, but shot 24% from three. I mean, like he's going to have to shoot it at some level, but it didn't really pop whenever I watched Dallas Omax at all.
No, I'm the same way. I don't think he really stood out. I'm an Omax guy. I loved Omax in that draft. I thought it was a really good pick. I thought he made sense in Dallas in terms of kind of what they're looking for with this rangy wing forward that can be versatile defensively, play hard as heck, get out and run in transition, cut, offensive rebound. Like those aren't necessarily summer league things, like you said, but it would have been nice to see him shoot the ball a little bit better than what he did. And ultimately that was what it was coming out of college was he people that bought into the catch and shoot. I think we're a little higher on him. People that didn't buy it were probably a little bit lower because I don't know that anybody was super high on him playing with ball in hand, breaking guys down. That's just not Omax's game.
Other guy, we just didn't talk about the Bulls here, but I thought Adama Sanogo was pretty good.
Yeah.
15 points, 8.8 rebounds, just one of those dudes who just carves out space.
Yep. You better box him out or he's going to get a rebound. That's for sure.
Like just constantly carving out space, has improved, I think, a little bit with the ball in his hands, out away from the basket, which is useful. Like not a shooter. He's just like a dribble handoff guy or whatever, but doesn't look totally uncomfortable doing those things now, which is good. I feel like I think we've gone through everybody now at this point.
Are you surprised with Sonogo that they haven't kind of encouraged him to explore the space of taking so I just happened to be looking at his stats the other day. His last year at Connecticut, he shot 52 of them. Is that right? Yeah, 52, made 37%, 77% from the free throw line. And then he didn't shoot like any in the G League this season. I think it was like 2 or something like that. And then I don't think he shot any at Summer League. Are you surprised they haven't encouraged that a little bit?
I always felt like he took his threes from right on the 3-point line.
Okay.
At Connecticut.
Gotcha.
So I wonder if he maybe hasn't developed the range yet.
Sure.
So maybe that's the issue here.
Makes sense.
Okay. I think that's everybody. It's all I've got on my end, Bryce. So schedule now moving forward. There is a chance that we take next week off from the show at this point, for a couple of reasons that we'll get into then maybe the next time we record. I'm pretty like burnout and tired after the season and after the draft and everything, and I could use a week. If something crazy happens with the Olympics, or if something like Brandon Ingram gets traded or whatever, like we'll definitely record. But I think that there's a chance that we take the week off, maybe. We'll see. I would like a week is kind of where I'm at. It's just whether or not we take it now or we take it like in August, at some point. Trying to figure that out still. We'll keep you guys updated for sure. If we're not around for a week, it's, you'll know what's going on. But there is a chance we record on like Sunday or Monday or something like that. It'll just depend on a couple of things that I have to kind of wrap my head around a little bit. Outside of that, that is all that I've got. Bryce, do you have anything that you have on your end that you need to get off your chest?
Nah, I'm good. I enjoyed doing this, breaking down all of Summer League. So it really is kind of the culmination of this 2024 draft, and kind of like, man, now we can really start talking about what's this team? What is that team? Who do we like the most? Who do we like the least? Who's our favorites? Who's gonna, and I know we'll have plenty of podcasts to do it, but I need a little break as well. And then I am truly excited to start really getting into that stuff and the teams I like and don't like and all of that.
Yeah, and do 2025 draft stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up here. That's going to be a great cycle. We're excited for that. Killian Hayes got signed, and I didn't bring that up until now after threatening it at the start. Thoughts, concerns, criticisms.
Listen, I told somebody sent me a DM. And listen, like I'm happy for Killian. Like awesome. Yeah. I had to talk about Killian Hayes for 4 years in the discourse that was the Detroit Pistons fan base. I was perfectly happy not having to talk about it anymore. So good for Killian. Brooklyn needs some on-ball creators. Hopefully it works out.
This might have to be a bit where I just start asking you about Killian Hayes at the end of every episode. Thoughts on Killian Hayes, Bryce? What's going on?
I haven't ate supper and it's 10 o'clock. I don't know if this is a good strategy.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, we'll let you guys know if we're going to take next week off or not. That's all we've got here though. Until next time, we will talk soon.